With sports on hold until further notice, aside from watching classic reruns, how will we spend our days? For a lot of us, well, it's obvious. We have video games and esports, but not all of us have gotten into this world just yet. So, to help bridge the gap between sports and esports, I thought we'd bring in the world's #1 esports consultant, Rod Slasher Breslau. How's it going, Rod?
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. You're in New York. Things are a little different there than they are here in Canada, so you're doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Of course, things are a bit crazy here in New York City, but as a gamer, things have not really changed before coronavirus and after. I'm still in my own apartment 12 hours a day playing games and covering the news, so not really anything that's changed too much for me.
Well, I feel like a little bit must have changed. More people may be reaching out to you now more than ever because it seems as though now is our moment. That's what everyone's saying online, that this is the moment for gamers. Like, now's our time to seize this opportunity. There are no sports on television. Now's the time for esports. You recently tweeted about that as well, just listing off all of the different broadcasts that are happening for esports, including NBA 2K on ESPN. There is NASCAR racing, NFL Madden you have on Fox Sports. TSN now is even airing the NASCAR iRacing circuit as well. So is this it? And who are we going to see pop up next? Which games?
I mean, of course, it's a tough time right now, and everyone's safety does come first. But yeah, it really has been a pretty positive moment for gaming and esports. Gaming really right now is showing that people can come together when there's really not a whole lot of options what else to do. And esports specifically has been able to bridge the gap between the traditional sports fan and with no sports on, been able to bring them to the audience of gaming. As you mentioned, almost every traditional sports league is now doing something in video games. Formula One and NASCAR who have put on great events inside of iRacing and the Formula One game, and which have gotten great ratings on TV, both in Sky Sports and on Fox TV. So they've really done a great job of being able to take what is in the digital realm and be able to push that over with their, the people that are competing in the highest leagues themselves. If it was just the digital racers or the iRacers or the NBA 2K players alone, this probably wouldn't get as much attention. But because the NBA players, the real NASCAR drivers, the real Formula One drivers are all competing in these leagues, it does bring it to another level to make people interested in watching.
Well, yeah, we're seeing a lot of athletes now just from home getting on their own streams, trying to stream for the first time, or just squatting up with another buddy on the team and getting together and streaming. They're bringing an audience that way because I feel like personally this is also their opportunity. They've been wanting to get into streaming for a while. Now they can, and they're going to use this audience that they would have had to get maybe in retirement or in the off season, and now they can kind of tap into that. Are you seeing more of that on your end too? Like, are you watching any of these guys jump on streams? Are you seeing some of them blow up? Because I feel like Lando Norris, boom, like 20K concurrent viewers at any given time watching this guy race. It's wild.
Yeah, I think Lando Norris has been a great example. Really fun guy to watch. He's already dedicated himself to shaving his own head when he was raising money for charity to fight the coronavirus. I've seen him now crash twice on stream with over 100,000 viewers with the Formula One game. Not great, by the way, Codemasters. You got to fix that thing, all right? I don't know what you guys are doing over there. And we see Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker from the NBA also streaming quite regularly, not to mention multiple hip-hop artists and musicians all around the world, which are now streaming on the platform as well. Twitch has been a really good job, done a really great job along with live streaming as technology. With everyone stuck at home and sports leagues off the air all the time, you even have the individual athletes, as you mentioned, streaming individually to people around the world and connecting with their fans when they aren't able to. And it's not really surprising that all of them are gamers. I mean, we've seen so many stories the past few years about clubhouses in baseball and hockey not playing well because they're playing too much Fortnite or too much Call of Duty, and they have to take away the games. Now that any of the sports leagues on, they're playing all day. We really see how much of a true league these guys are gamers.
I mean, you love to see it. I love to see it, of course. I want all the attention on gamers all the time, so I feel like now is maybe the time to shine. But do you feel like this could be our poker? Because do you remember, I don't know if you remember back in 2004, 2005, there was an NHL lockout, and in that time ESPN had a thing to air. They put poker on television, and that wasn't exactly what the seeds of that industry was, and just that making it blow up. But I feel like because, and a lot of people feel like because there was no hockey, we were able to make this very niche product bloom. And so I'm just wondering if you see the same kind of path for esports.
Yeah, I mean, there are two things happening right now that are really important, I think, for people to recognize. One is that all of the traditional esports leagues, which are the games like Overwatch, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, etc., they've been able to, even though they had to postpone their major leagues a few weeks ago, they were able to reschedule them with an entire new season, everything played online in less than a week. So you have Overwatch League that is back from this past weekend. LCS and LEC are back competing. Counter-Strike Go has 2 different leagues. Rocket League is back. And Call of Duty, from my sources, will be back in the next week or two. So you have all of these big leagues where the NBA, the NFL, the NHL are all off right now, and there's no light in the end of the tunnel of them coming back maybe to the end of the season. You have esports leagues which have been able to transition to a full online format in such a short period of time, where there's no sports on the air, but there's multiple, maybe even a dozen different esports that are still able to watch. And that really kind of showcases how cool esports is, how it's used the internet as its main vehicle, and where it's kind of grown over the last 20 years, and how it can even though all these big events, of course, are cool, and having a LAN event really is the main experience, but being able to go back to the online portion of things that really showcase what esports can do over the internet, I think is really cool. And then secondary, you have all of these the main sports leagues. So you have hockey, basketball, racing, been able to go into a digital format. And I think for a lot of the maybe mainstream TV audience who is always, complaining that video games and esports are on TV, and I always love showcasing all those people who are always upset all the time, I think that being able to watch NBA 2K or the NASCAR iRacing or the Formula One events on TV actually was a very new experience as opposed to the endemic esports leagues. If you're a gamer, you're probably more often going to be watching the League of Legends Championship Series, the Overwatch League, because those games do bigger numbers. But for most non-gamers, they don't know what is going on, but they easily recognize sports and they watch sports all the time. So for the major sports leagues to be able to have a digital format and to showcase the games in the NBA 2K, NHL 2020, NASCAR, Formula One with the main athletes that are competing at the highest level, it can really bring the casual fan into it. And I've seen so many comments of people that have watched the iRacing event, for example, say that they've never watched video games before, but now they are so interested because they see it. It looks so realistic. They could barely tell the difference between the game and the actual event, that it's really showed them that, oh, wow, this stuff is actually really cool. I think I like esports now. And I think that, in that way, this has been able to been a great boom for esports, and it's shown that really video games are the future.
I love that so much. But who would have thought? Who would have thought it would be iRacing out of all the esports to actually bridge the gap?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like racing games have always been on the totem pole. I mean, sports games in general have always been behind kind of the more fantasy first-person shooters and RTS and MOBA games. But then even racing games in terms of sports games are always on the bottom compared to like Madden, NHL, and NBA. But honestly, they look more realistic than any of the other games, and they are called simulators for a reason. They are more of a simulation than just a video game, and you can really only get that with the racing games, and especially iRacing have built such incredible technology, which you can build a $40,000 rig in NASCAR iRacing, or you could just play on the winner of this past weekend's event had a laptop on his table with a fan and ice on the side because it was overheating because of such a kind of an amateur setup that he had, but he was able to win the race against people that had $40,000 iRacing setups. So I think that racing has actually done the best job to bring over the mainstream into video games because of how realistic the games look compared to real life.
I do like seeing the professional gamers and professional athletes combine here in this space as well, because like we're seeing Landudores, like he's playing, he's incredible, he's competing. There are so many actual professional gamers getting to compete with real life athletes that are playing in the actual cars now together digitally. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is such a great moment, even though with everything going on right now, and it's a really tough time for a lot of people. I mean, some of the best comments that I saw watching the Formula One and the NASCAR races is that they were able to get at least virtually together with their friends and with their family and still have somewhat of a normal life or normalcy that they had before everything, the coronavirus. And that was really comforting to them. It made them like feel good, like they've had a terrible week and everything is canceled and they're working from home, and or maybe they've lost their job and they don't really know what to do right now. But something like the NASCAR event has been able to be consistent and be there for them to kind of let off steam for a few hours and kind of remind them of how things were only a few months ago. So I think video games in general and esports have really been able to bring people together and be a positive light in a moment of darkness for a lot of people.
I love that. We need more positive everything, and I feel like one of the games that provides so much of that, especially because it's G-rated. You know, I'm talking about Rocket League. It combines really racing-ish with soccer. I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for Rocket League out of all the esports to shine. We know that it's been sitting on the bubble of maybe being a tier 1 esport for a while now. Is this its moment?
I mean, out of all the games, this really is the game that probably should have the mainstream attention. First-person shooters, of course, especially realistic, militaristic first-person shooters, are always going to have the issue of they're very realistic. There's a lot of blood. You're shooting people in the head. You're planting bombs as terrorists. And that's always going to be off-putting, especially to mainstream TV media and to mainstream sponsors. FPSs in that way are going to have a lot of issues going forward and trying to circumvent that and to try to work around that. And where Rocket League is totally G-rated, as you mentioned, it's extremely simple concept and easy to understand of take the car and shoot the ball into the other goal. And just itself, Rocket League is getting hundreds of thousands of viewers already on Twitch and doing well itself. It doesn't need to be propped up by the TV media to make it a thing. It's already doing great on its own. And now it's owned by Epic Games, who also owns Fortnite, who basically has unlimited amount of money to promote the league and the sport itself. So for me, yes, Rocket League is definitely the next game to really break into the mainstream. And right now it feels like an extremely good opportunity for maybe some of these TV media companies who don't have anything to put on their TV channels right now to get into Rocket League and to put them on the sports TV to have everyone watch.
Yes, the spring series is coming up, so we will wait and see who's going to jump on board with this one. But it hasn't been all sunshine and lollipops for the esports world, of course. I mean, when we're thinking about esports, you did mention live events earlier, and that's something that so many of us loved and thrived off of. I made a decent amount of money in my life just even before I got to TSN just hosting esports events. They're quite lucrative if you can get a gig in that space, and even with TOs putting events together, like those take a lot of manpower, a lot of work, and all those people are now looking for jobs or just sitting on EI. In Canada, we do have a decent system here where we're able to go and get some government assistance while we wait for the world to come back together again. But while we wait, I'm just concerned about these TOs. Like, what's going to happen to the DreamHacks of the world?
I think the DreamHacks and the ESLs of the world would be all right. They have money in the bank. They're owned by a big corporation, MTG. They're able to weather the storm of having their events canceled or rescheduled. You've already had the ESL Dota Major have to be canceled. They've been able to put them online. And a bunch of DreamHacks events in the U.S. have been fully canceled for this year. But I think they'll generally be okay because they're kind of the bigger companies. The ones to look out for are mainly the fighting game community. Combo Breaker, which is one of the most beloved events in the fighting game community, which just had to be canceled. And the fighting games rely much more on their in-person events and other esports. That's been one of the big strengths of the fighting game community, is that something like Smash or Street Fighter or Tekken has dozens upon dozens of events throughout the year, all throughout the world. Getting people together in one location to play is really been one of the biggest things of fighting games, and they've been able to consistently bring people out for tournaments every single week into the hundreds or thousands of people. And they're the ones going to be taking the biggest hit. Not only is the fighting game community their biggest strength of bringing people together lost, but a lot of them are indies. They're owned by, small, just individual people or very small companies. They are not like these big conglomerate corporations that we have in esports owned by developers that are, billion-dollar corporations. These are small events, and losing all of their revenue for this year, it might be a death sentence for some of them. You have multiple events like CEO even, which is kind of one of the bigger events in the fighting game community, put out like the asking for help from the community or not to cancel their reservations that they had booked just so they can stay afloat and not lose so much money into next year. So the fighting game community, out of all the different communities, is going to take the hardest hit here, and they're going to need the most support to keep themselves going so that they don't have a loss of events for when everything gets back to normal.
Oh my god, Rod, that makes me so incredibly sad because I feel like we've been championing for the fighting game community for a while now, and they've been their own biggest supporters for a while, and it's such an incredible scene to get into once you're actually into it. I don't want to see any of this go away. I know a lot of the guys that play professionally are just streaming now, which is okay. They get pretty decent views, of course, but I don't want to see these. I just feel like even the Smash community, like, they were actually going to have this amazing tournament with this awesome prize pool, and now that's been canceled too. Like, it's upsetting for me to think about this community not being able to thrive.
Yeah, I mean, the Smash World Tour had just been announced, and all of this happens. I mean, it really hurts the Smash and the Street Fighter and the Tekken, et cetera, all the fighting games communities the most, but they are very resilient, okay?
Yeah.
They've been, they have been, the underdog this entire time with, big PC esports getting all the money and all the attention through all these years. This is just par for the course of them. Traditional esports is now getting all the spotlight, and the fighting game community is kind of being ignored here. So they're used to that. I think they'll be okay. They'll come out at the end of this stronger than ever. As soon as the events come back, you'll definitely see the community come out and support these players, support these teams, and support these event organizers to make sure that they don't have to lose, the things that they love to do.
Sure. Well, talking about, big corporations and esports that have kind of pushed the fighting game community off to the side was really Blizzard putting out Overwatch League in the beginning there. And it was on broadcast for a while, and it didn't really do too well on broadcast. And now it's just living exclusively on YouTube. Are you seeing the numbers kind of fluctuate there? How has that been going? I know there was some dissent in the community, people, especially outside of Overwatch, in the CSGO community, calling out the Overwatch community and the broadcasts for maybe bolstering numbers that weren't really there. Is that still the case? And how are you I know you love Overwatch. That's the thing. I know you love Overwatch. Is this community and is this scene still going to thrive?
Yeah, I mean, I love Overwatch, which means I love to hate on Overwatch too, because the game is one of the most frustrating experiences that I've ever had in my entire life. At the same time, for the Counter-Strike community, who's always criticizing Overwatch, you got to take that with a grain of salt a little bit. They've been talking smack about Overwatch since before the game came out. Overwatch League going to TV and off of Twitch is just another thing for people to make fun of from that community. I mean, they do have some solid points there. I mean, Overwatch League on Twitch makes a whole lot more sense for most of that community than it does on YouTube. And they certainly have much less viewership this season than they had on Twitch, which could be for a lot of reasons. It could be because it's on YouTube. It could be because of the state of the game and the meta and everyone being very frustrated with that. It could be a lack of Blizzard marketing and promotion. So there are a few reasons, a few things to look at here, and viewership is definitely down. But I do think that one thing that has been overlooked by a lot of people, or maybe even purposely ignored to fit a narrative that they want to put in, is that Activision Blizzard still reportedly made $150 million from Google for the exclusive rights of Call of Duty League and Overwatch League. And it feels like everyone just doesn't want to recognize that Activision Blizzard made more money than they did the last time. They got $70 million over 2 years for the Twitch deal, and they've basically almost doubled it for this deal now. And for everyone to not recognize that as part of one of the huge reasons for them to move from Twitch to YouTube seems like it is purposely misleading by people who don't like Overwatch, who don't like Overwatch League, who want to always bash on Activision Blizzard. And don't get me wrong, I'm more than welcome to do that quite often as they mess up, just because they want to push out their own narrative or promote a different game because they like that game better, or they're very mad at Activision Blizzard because they don't have a job casting there anymore. And then and I feel like people should take that into context whenever no one mentions how much money they just made off the broadcast rights. If you really want to measure the success of the league, that is almost the first thing you do for all the traditional sports league. How much money have they made from ESPN or TSN on the broadcast rights for NHL or the NBA or the NFL? And Activision Blizzard's actually done a pretty good job there. So I think all things considered, the Overwatch League has been a success just based on the money that they got from Google.
Sure, success for them because they're making money, and less so for the community that has been aiding in the views for that. I don't want to trash it. I do actually want that scene to thrive. I promise you, I do. Just because we have a vested interest too here in Toronto, we have our own teams. It's very exciting, and I want people to actually come out to events. These events that have been postponed, of course, but when they're back, I want people to come out. I want them to show their support. It was amazing just seeing the Overwatch League. And the team here have a lineup around the block, like inside a mall at the source. They had a lineup there going around. It looped it. They had so many people that they could not believe how many people wanted to come out and meet this team. It just is eye-opening to so many others who are not part of this scene. So I just need more of that. But I feel like the biggest competition that Blizzard really has always been Riot. And Riot is coming out with, they have been testing a new little something that I feel like might be the next big thing. Do you believe in Valorant?
I do. I just want to say, by the way, I understand all those Toronto fans. If you're a Maple Leaf fan, you haven't experienced a win or a championship in what feels like a couple decades, so you don't actually understand how it is to win anything or to be happy in life. So I understand that, you really want to root for the Defiant and you really want to root for the Toronto esports teams to bring you some happiness if you don't watch the Raptors. And that's kind of the only experience that you get. So I get that, Marissa. I understand that's kind of how your life is most of it. Now, on the Valorant question, look, I've spoken to a lot of people that have played the secret private alpha test this weekend that I just happened to blow up and report on and live tweet the entire time. My bad, Riot. I know you're not too quite thrilled with me right now. But I got to say, I've spoken to maybe 24 players that competed in this weekend's NDA signed event, and really everyone was extremely positive about the game. Almost all the experiences that have spoken to were really good, and these are people and players that would tell me if the game was bad. They're honest with me. They would tell me if they didn't like something. They would tell me if they had a negative experience. They would tell me if they thought that Riot was not doing a good job. But all of these people that I've spoken to, almost all of them are FPS pros from Counter-Strike, Overwatch, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty. They all really had pretty positive things to say about Valorant, from the gunplay, the mechanics, the movement, and the overall feel of the game. It was really surprising to hear how positive everyone was, but it was a good thing because it feels like this game, even though the hype has definitely been real, and I've been, part of, I think bringing the hype. I'm not paid at all, so I want to throw that out there.
And you do not sign NDAs. You also want to
do not sign NDAs or embargoes, and I'm not paid any money. But really, like, the enthusiasm is real. I know there's already people out there who thinking that all of those content creators that are tweeting the same thing are all kind of shills or getting paid by Riot. Riot did not pay any of the influencers this past weekend. They are not paying anyone to stream it. They are all playing it because they like the game and because they are equally as enthused about playing this game as everybody else. I think Riot really does have a hit on their hands. First-person shooters are, of course, for a lot of reasons, the biggest games in America and in Europe. And with everyone a little bit tired of Battle Royale right now because of the way of the game mode and how it works, 5v5 and 6v6 traditional old school shooters are, making a strong surge. You have Counter-Strike Go with more players than ever. So Valorant is coming out right now at the perfect time, and Riot could not be in a better position to have Valorant take over the gaming world.
All right, so to summarize, iRacing is going to be the term that we're going to use. iRacing, thriving. Rocket League is about to pop off, and athletes are streaming now more than ever. So now is the time to get into esports. Man of the people, Rod / Breslau, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.